So students, today we are learning how to cut part of an image out, such as graffiti, out of one image, bring it into another image of a blank setting, and enhance it and modify it, select it, and just change it in its perspective so that it begins to look like it fits in with that scene. So the first thing you need to do is open up a scene that you'll use for things to go in. Let's do this one. And you also need to open up a picture of the graffiti that you want to put into that. I'll just drag this to the orange bar so that it fits neatly and maximized in the workspace. Open again, and we will choose. You can change the view to see these more easily to large icons or extra large icons if you prefer. Let's just choose that one. So with the marquee tool, I mean, you can select very specifically with the different lasso tools, but just for argument's sake, I'm going to take the rectangular marquee and just grab this picture of Bacon Stuff, who's one of the kind of godfathers of the Toronto graffiti scene, and copy that, Ctrl C, or you can just use the move tool and drag that selected area into your other picture down in the project bin and let go, and it'll appear there. Otherwise, you'll have to press Ctrl V in here in order to get that second layer in. Let's delete that. So what the goal here is, we're going to put this piece of graffiti on this back wall, massive, so that it's enormous. Looks like it was done by a professional muralist, and we'll have to modify it in how it appears so that it looks like it matches the lighting of this cafeteria, as well as the perspective of the cafeteria. You'll notice this line is kind of vanishing off into the horizon over way past where my screen ends. And same with these lines. Those are a little bit more angled. The tables will show you that same perspective, but going up. So we need to match the perspective first. You can do that by going up to Image and Transform and Perspective, or I prefer to just hold down Control and modify the layer from the corners. So normally when you drag from a corner, you hover over the corner anchor and you see these two diagonal arrows appear. You click and drag to retain that same proportion and move it into place. And you can press the green check mark to commit that action. And if you hold down Control, you toggle the cursor to be one where you can modify that corner alone. So let's drag this down so that the perspective matches what's happening in the environment. Let's drag that up a little bit more. And you can do it from all four corners and match your scene about right. Now I've got stuff in this background layer, these windows that would normally not be covered with graffiti like this, a mural. So one thing you can do is drop the opacity down, hover over the word opacity, click and drag down so that you can see behind that layer, and use one of your selection tools to select the stuff that will be cut out of that graffiti layer. I'm just going to return to my beginning point, make sure I'm on layer 1, and delete. And it'll have deleted out anything from that layer. You'll see when I drag the opacity back up that that mural is now full-sized. Now I can press Ctrl D to deselect. I can freshen this up by erasing parts of, like, let's say the dog I didn't want. I can use my eraser tool on layer 1 and just very specifically get in there and erase, or I can use my selection tools for that as well. Okay, Ctrl 0 to get back all the way out. So there are some things that I'll need to keep if I'm going to make this look realistic. One of them is the exit sign. A few more are these lights. So I'm going to need to select those on their own, copy them from the background, and then paste them as a new layer on top of layer 1. Okay, so everything that I've wanted selected is now selected, and I could do that because I held down Shift to add to the selection each time. And I need to be on my background layer to copy those pixels. I press Ctrl C and Ctrl V to paste those. And so you'll see those appear in layer 2. I'll just call that layer, by double clicking on it, foreground. And I'll move it above layer 1 so that when I have layer 1 visible to its full extent, you'll still see that exit sign, you'll still see these lights appear in front of the graffiti. We are still feeling like this piece of graffiti doesn't really match the scene. It's got a really very bright white to it, where as in the scene it doesn't look like the lighting will allow for that kind of brightness, especially if it's up at the top. Maybe down here if these spotlights kind of were on it, but even those don't seem like they're too strong. So we need to modify this layer to make it look like it fits. One of the ways to do that is to leave some of the stuff that's behind here still visible, like the shadows on this wall where these pillars stand out. You can change the blend mode of that layer so that the pixels in the graffiti layer are interacting with the pixels from the background layer. So darken is one you can use. You can use sometimes overlay is good for this kind of thing. And to cycle through the different options, you can choose one of them and then press the up and down arrows to see which one you like. And then you'll see that pillar is still visible. Now the one downside to having features of this environment that come out from the wall and then back towards the wall, along the wall, back out, if you wanted to make it look very realistic, you would have to make your graffiti match those contours of the architecture. So for instance, in this case, you might drop this opacity down for a sec. You might have to take part of that layer 1 out along that same line and either enlarge it a touch, make it brighter a touch. Let's move it down a bit. So that it's slightly offset. I'm not too concerned about making it too much bigger in this case. Ctrl D to deselect, and it looks like it's a little bit offset now. Still that's a touch clunky, but at least it gets that effect that something is changing planes. Let's do the same thing here. And using the move tool, you can even distort it a little bit. Make it a little bit bigger up at top this way, a little bit bigger down this way. And that'll make it look like it's standing out a touch. There's also, if you're being really finicky, you can take the like a polygonal lasso tool, and try to get that portion of the wall that is angled and angle it. So, I mean, this is even hard to see, but you'd have to hold down Control and drag from this corner down a little bit, make it look like it's in perspective, and up a touch. You know, I don't know if that's gonna work. Control D to deselect. Yeah, it's a little offset now. Yikes. Yeah, so that wasn't successful, but you can see that better on, let's say you were making a piece of graffiti turn a corner. That would be a much more effective transformation. It's also better to do it on a separate layer. So if you take that little sliver of, or that corner that you're going to go back into the distance in, cut it out and paste it into a new layer. Okay, so bringing opacity right back up, we have that crazy transformation I just did, as well as this pillar standing out, which is fine, and Control 0 to go all the way back out. It still looks like it's not fitting into this scene, and my layer I can change to make it fit the scene better by changing the opacity. That can help, and it can also help to begin to add transformations to, or sorry, enhancements to those pixels themselves. So you could go to Enhance, Adjust Lighting and Levels, or Ctrl L, and this will let you change the output. So if you can make no black pixels. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer here. Layer 1, Ctrl L. You can make no black pixels ever appear in this image, or you can make no white pixels ever appear in this image. You can really dull it down that way. And I think I want to do that because I don't see the very rich blacks and whites in this scene. So that's appropriate. And also you can change the mid values and the low values just to enhance or pop color, increase whiteness on that wall. That looks like it fits a bit more, like it might be part of the scene. You can press OK. You can also change colors if you want. You can enhance the colors by going to Adjust Color, and you can adjust hue or saturation. Another one is adjusting color curves that might be used frequently. So Ctrl U, and you can change the hue, which is the main kind of type of color, the color family. You can change the saturation, how rich it is, or how dull it is. And lightness I would avoid. Do levels instead of mucking about with lightness. Okay. Good. Okay, so that fits within the scene. And I have used lighting, adjust lighting and levels. I've adjusted the hue and saturation to make this fit. I've adjusted the opacity, and I have copied materials from the background to place into the foreground. And yeah, it's starting to look like it fits. So let me pop a few other things in here, and we'll see how it looks. So I've got another picture in here. The part of the arm of that character that curves around. I'll need to treat that differently with my levels, Ctrl L, in order to make it look like it's got the same darkness that's on this plane of this building as on this surface. So let's take its midtones and bring those down a bit too. We can change the output levels because they need to match that same faded look as the rest of the space, and press OK. Layer 2 with that same levels. I think we still need to make a little bit of a change to the legs with levels. So you go back and forth with this until you're happy. Okay, so that's wrapping around in a way that I like. And they still seem a little bit bright. We haven't given them any special blend mode treatment like overlay. And the only thing we need to do now is delete some of those pixels from behind the speaker and from behind these pictures. Okay, so you can see that I've added this extra mural in here. It's in layer 2, and I've got the arm and the leg as part of layer 3, and those are all acting independently. I've got them in an overlay. I've changed their opacity. And just to give you a look at what it looked like beforehand, I just held down Alt and Control and clicked on the eyeball of one layer to just show that layer. There's the regular scene. We've got our graffiti added. And again, in order to get layer 2 the way it was, looking like it's vanishing into the distance, I held down Control. I clicked from one corner, and you can change the perspective. So you have learned how to skew by holding down Control and clicking on one of the anchors. You've learned how to adjust hue and saturation, levels, opacity, selection skills, and get things in so that they look like they actually fit the environment.